What a pleasure, my lords, to follow the noble and right Reverend Lord Sentamu and his extraordinary combination of passion and knowledge. My lords, I've so far not raised the subject of the European Union in this place. I mean, you know how it is. We get typecast, don't we? We get pigeonholed. You make 12 speeches on something else, and then the one time you mention the B word, everyone says, oh, he's on his hobby horse. He only ever talks about one thing. I think I've so far gone, this is my 81st spoken contribution, and I've not yet mentioned the B word. I say the B word. I have, I think, spoken about broadcasting, about Botox, and about the BBC, but I'm, for the first time this evening, going to mention Brexit in the context of how the debate was introduced by my noble friend Lord Grimston and then picked up by the noble Lord Ricketts and others, the context being the necessity of unity in the face of international aggression. And I agree very much that we need a united West at the moment, but perhaps not in the way that several dozen other noble lords who have raised this point intend. It's certainly the case that we need a united front. The West has shown itself to be very geographically limited. The governments that have imposed any kind of sanctions on Putin's regime represent perhaps 20%, if that, of the world's population. A lot of countries that you would have thought would have self-identified as democracies and taken that seriously. The Indias, the Israels, the Indonesias have tended rather to sit this out. But I have to say that when we come to the issue that is supposedly dividing the West, the response to unilateral action over the Northern Ireland Protocol, I detect a real asymmetry, a real imbalance in how British ministers speak and how their counterparts in the European Union address the issue. Because wherever you stand on the protocol, and I accept that there are lots of noble lords on all sides who think that we, pacta sunt servanda, and we've given our word and all the rest of it. But one thing which I hope we can all agree on is that the proposed reforms are not animated by bellicosity. They're not intended to be harmful. I think even the European Union and all of the parties in Northern Ireland acknowledge that there are genuine grievances that need remedying. I don't think anyone is denying that. And so, whether it's the proposal for the Green Channel or the proposal for local control over and democratic control over taxation, it's plainly intended to remedy an identified harm rather than to do harm to a neighbour. The same is not true of the rhetoric we get in the other direction. European Union officials speak quite openly about punitive measures, about retaliation. And it's not just their words. If we look at other aspects of the UK-EU relationship that have been held up because they've been tied to this issue, we see again and again that the European Union is prepared to act in a way that is costly to all sides, that inflicts some damage on itself because the essential spirit is vindictive. We discussed at great length the UK's exclusion from the Horizon programme the other day. I'm not particularly fussed one way or the other about the Horizon programme, but nobody could argue that this is just the EU advancing its own interest. It was deliberately intended and sold internally as being about hurting Britain. The same thing about the energy trading schemes in the North Sea, which were supposed to have been ratified last month. Their non-ratification retards the development of renewables and increases our dependence on Russian hydrocarbons. The same thing about equivalence in financial services and so on. These are all examples of where all sides are being damaged in order to make a point. And so I put it to you that the real threat to Western democracy is not a proportionate and measured attempt to remedy these grievances in Northern Ireland in a way expressly designed not to do any harm to our neighbour, that would ensure no more leakage than now. Even if we take seriously the idea that a pork pie crossing into County Donegal would wreck the single market, there is nothing in the government's proposals that will make that a more likely scenario than it is today. The real threat is rather this lamentable tendency in Brussels still to think of the United Kingdom as a renegade province that needs to be brought to heel rather than as a strategic ally. My Lords, I'm very proud of this country's contribution to the defence of Ukraine. We started earlier and we were at it longer than others. And we've done so, let's remember this, not because we were directly threatened. There was no scenario in which Russian troops were about to cross into Kent, but because, as in 1914, as in 1939, we wanted to come to the aid of a friendly country because we believe in European freedom and security. We are good Europeans. I wonder whether the same is true of the European Commission.